Hello, good to all of you today. This is Maureen with HR Services, and we're going to begin the webinar on return to work solutions and overcoming barriers in just a few more moments. And I will talk about our speaker, and we'll just wait for a few more people to get into the webinar, but we will start at exactly 11 a.m. This is Maureen again, and at this moment, I am so delighted to introduce our speaker today. We're just a couple of minutes before 11, and Janae Cantu, who is the COO of Integrated Claims Management, has been, we're just so appreciative that she's been happy to present today regarding return to work solutions after someone has been on a workers' comp injury or L&I. She has been with her organization with 20 plus years. She is the COO of Integrated Claims Management. They have vast experience in the industrial insurance field. And Janae has been most instrumental in developing ICM's core quality standards and helping employers across the state of Washington navigate the complex Washington state workers' compensation law, which includes many of our trust members in the Washington area. So with her extensive background in claims management and customer service, she shares with us, relishes the opportunity to teach and educate employers so they can make informed decisions in this ever-changing workers' comp realm, which can become so complicated. So I'm going to be turning this over to Janae to start the presentation. And if you, a couple of housekeeping items. This is SHRM and HRCI certified. For the SHRM certification, when the presentation ends today, you'll have the opportunity to take a short survey, and they'll provide you with your certification points. And even an hour afterwards, that can occur, that it will come back up again. If you have any problems getting the SHRM and with HRCI, please communicate to us at hrservices@501c.com, and we'll make sure you get that certification. Also, we always encourage questions, and we will do that at the end of Janae's presentation today, and I'll field those questions for her. So thank you for attending.
Thanks, Maureen, for having me on. I'm going to get the screen up really quickly and so that you can all see. So today's webinar is on return to work solutions and overcoming barriers. And it's a great topic that impacts everyone. Whether you're in Washington State like I am, or you're across the nation, because there's all different barriers that you have when you have someone that's been injured out on a job, not only with dealing with paperwork and insurance, but making sure that they're taken care of and that you're getting them back to work, which really what it does is it helps contain the cost of the claim and keeps your rates down no matter where you are. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, hopefully provide you with some solutions and talk about those barriers and solutions that I know that work and hopefully give you some nuggets of information that you can use and implement, and some action items that you can take with you. So,
Hey,
with that, yes,
this is Karen. You need to switch monitors because I see your notes on one side and your slides on the other. So if you want to just show, yeah, there you go.
there we go. Is that
Thank you.
better? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Sorry about that, you guys. I'm never sure I have two monitors. I'm never sure which one is actually viewing. So perfect. Well, good. Now that you can see it all, again, today we're just going to talk about those barriers, and then I have some solutions. So that's what I want to pass on to you. So let's talk about first, one of the biggest barriers with return to work is that you're dealing usually with someone that is either limited in their capacity to do their regular job, or limited to return to work at all. And just know I'm using some data that I've taken from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and based upon some different injuries, there's some real trends in how much time someone may need off work. As you can see here, we have your simple cuts, your lacerations, your burns. Those type of injuries, they're just going to be about maybe 3 to 5 days off work. Now, when we start talking about sprains and strains and tears, now we're getting up between 5 and 11 days off work. And then when we talk about, your real catastrophic injuries, maybe like an amputation, your fractures with multiple injuries and fractures, those we're talking 20 plus days off work. And then the trends show that even carpal tunnel syndrome, fractures, and even tendonitis type claims, those are 30 plus days off work. And these are from 2017. This is a median number of days off of work. And with that, we've also listed here the ages, and you can see typically the younger the injured worker is, the more readily they're getting back to work, and that those that are older tend to take longer off work. And so with this data, you can sometimes go back and look at your own data in your organization and see where your type of injury is coming from, and then maybe what are the ages of your organization that you tend to have injured workers. That may help you kind of to see maybe some of the trends that you have in your organization to help you better implement some things that can help you either contain costs, get people back to work, and then as we talk about further in this, action items that you can take to help that to actually decrease it. Because if you don't know where you are, you don't know where you can go, and there's certainly always some things that you can do to help reduce that in place. So that is just some information on that. And then here I have some incident rates with days away from work. This is showing that per 10,000 full-time workers, what are the incident rates? And here it's showing, and this is from top to bottom, your overexertions and your bodily reactions are going to cause most of your days away from work, or at least it does, and does reflect this for the whole United States. It's quickly followed up by your falls with your slips and trips, and then thirdly, by contact with objects. And those we see a lot, or they might be classified as struck by, struck against, those type of claims. And I can tell you from looking at data from even in our state, across the board in all industries, this is so true. Those are the top 3 type of injuries that we see. And then on the lower end of the spectrum, we see either violence caused by other persons or animals, and then transportation, your motor vehicle accidents. So between 2013 and 2017, injuries from those overexertions and bodily reactions did show a decrease. So things are improving. There was actually a 15% decrease over those years, but it's still your top tier number 1 type of injury. And so knowing where your injuries may be coming from can help you to maybe take action in those specific areas. And then also knowing maybe where you find you are in this chart. So next we're going to talk about some of the barriers that typically come from an injured worker, because you are dealing in your organization with a person who has been injured, and right away you're either going to have possibly someone that is like on the positive track and like, yes, let's do this. I can get back to work. It's not a problem. Or you have someone that is on the other side, more on the negative side of the track, and they have some issues and, you know, some things that they're going to raise right away that may make your job more difficult. And so a lot of times what we hear from the injured worker is that they have blame. They, you know, it's someone else's fault. They didn't cause this. It's someone else's fault, something's fault. It happened to them. It's nothing they did. There's nothing they could have done differently. They don't even want to talk about it. They put up that brick wall right away. And so, you know, that's a lot of times what you have to deal with. And with that, it's really important that you break that down right away because it did happen. And yes, maybe it is the fault of something else, but now you want to get to the root cause. Why did that happen and how can it be fixed so it doesn't happen again? Also, they're usually pretty worried about their job or disciplinary steps that may be taken due to that injury. This may lead to a breakdown in that communication with you or their manager, and that's definitely what we don't want. We want to keep that line of communication very open during this whole process because without that, we see claims go south so fast and down a wrong track. So it's best to definitely, if you have to deal with disciplinary things, do it right away, get it taken care of, and then move on if they're still employed there, hopefully, move on to, okay, let's fix it, and now let's move on from this and take care of, you know, making sure that communication is ongoing through the rest of the process that everyone still has to be involved with. A lot of times you see injured workers get very anxious about being re-injured because it happened once, it can happen again. They're cautious somewhat, especially maybe if they have a job that is high energy, high impact. Those may be concerns. And we'll talk more about how we can address that during that return to work process in helping to deal with maybe some of that. But it's best up front just to let them know that you're going to help take care of them. You're going to help them through this process. And with them being open in communication, you can make sure that you address any worries that they may have and that they get addressed right away. And then lastly, a lot of times we see negative attitudes and or you might have already had some performance issues. And with that, you know, those things sometimes have to be dealt with, but my best suggestion would be to not address them at this point in time. If you've had somebody that's been injured on the job and they have some performance issues, it's best to set those aside for now and deal with the claim at hand that you have. Someone's injured, they need to get back to work, their claim needs to be resolved, and then deal with those performance issues, if at all possible. Here in Washington State, it's very difficult to address those issues and not have it affect the claim, especially in the case of, say, a termination, because when you do that, they are eligible for certain benefits. So I would say, if at all possible, try to take those performance issues, put them aside, continue to document, though, during the process, but maybe take care of those once the claim has been resolved and you're more on some solid ground again. And so with that, again, communicate is the number one tool that you have in your tool belt through the process to make sure and kind of address some of these issues, or at least get them out in the open. Having that open line of communication with the worker, at least you'll know what they're feeling, and then you may be able to react to that once you know what's going on. So with the common barriers we have for injured workers, we also see barriers for employers. A number one barrier I hear a lot is I had an injury, but I can't bring it because I have no light duty. A lot of times we'll hear, well, why would I bring them back to light duty? They're just going to drag it out. What will the coworkers say about this? I can't bring them back here. They have to be doing their regular job. And sometimes we'll hear, oh, that's way too much work, which I completely agree with. It is a lot of work. We also hear a lot of times that this employee was already a problem and they just don't want to add to it. It's too much of a hassle. And boy, do I agree with you full-heartedly on all of these things. So let's talk about maybe some solutions to that. So number one, if you are an employer that says, I really don't have any light duty, I'll talk a little later on a real good solution for that. But at this day and age, it's almost like you can't afford to not have some light duty or have some solutions. You know, in 2016, almost $49.5 million was lost in productivity and wages due to not bringing people back to work. When we talk about whether the person might be re-injured and what your liability might be, you know, again, I go back to the communication, keeping that open so you know what their physical abilities are, and then leaning towards what their doctor says they can and can't do. And then with that together, you should be able to craft something that they could safely do at work. Now, you'll never have any or no risk at all bringing someone back that's injured. I mean, they have been injured, they're healing. But you can take a lot of steps to reduce it. And one of the light duty solutions that we offer can help in that as well because it's extremely light duty. When employers have the problem with employees dragging out or the worry that they'll drag out the light duty, you have a couple of options. One is that you don't have to say this is a forever thing. You have the option to say, this is how long light duty will be. And I have had success with employers making sure that the claimant knows up front that it will only last for a specified amount of time, say 14 days or 30 days or 45 days. A lot of employers find that gives some sort of incentive for an injured worker to be like, oh, this is ending soon and I need to get back to my regular job. So that's always an option. Another option is to just start them on something. Get them back into the workplace, get them working, and then kind of evaluating where they're at and how they're doing. You can always go back to the worker and their doctor and say, you know, I saw you the other day and it looks like you should be able to do this or that. Or you could start out with saying, okay, we have some light duty. I don't have 8 hours, but maybe I have 4. So let's start you out at part-time and gradually increase those hours as you continue to heal and recover. So those are some of the options you have so that you don't feel penned in that if you offer light duty, it's going to be a forever thing. Because there does come a time when you do have that employee that is dragging it out for reasons unknown to me why they would do that. They either have something else going on, they don't really like their job, but you know, some people just tend to want to languish in that light duty. And so there are some options you have to try and move that along. And every case is going to be a little different. Nothing's going to look the same. What you might do for one may not work out for another. The other barrier you might have is, again, what coworkers might say. And this is where the education of your employees about what your process is, about why you do the things you do, the cost of having someone out of work, the productivity cost of that, passing that along well before an injury takes place, but it be part of an ongoing conversation is really great to have so that when a team sees that one of their teammates is not able to do their job fully, they're supportive of that. And that they're involved in that solution. When we talk about steps you can take, this is the time to rely upon that team, to go back to them, to ask them for their input. Well, what would you do? Well, what would you do? How can we make this work for everyone so that not one person has the burden on you know, Mr. Jones being out of work or Mr. Jones only being able to do part of his job, you know, really taking that on and really asking the team for their solutions. And yes, it does take time. This is no doubt about it. This is a heavy investment, but it can pay dividends when you see your rates go down, when you don't have people miss time from work, when you get the team involved, and when everybody knows that you take care of your employees when they're injured on the job. There's a lot of employers that don't care. You're injured, you're out. They get another body in. That's the bottom line. And if your teammates see that you are helping out in the solution and taking care of that person, they may get more invested in that, and they can help you. And there are steps we can take in advance so that the burden isn't all right after the injury. And that's hopefully what you'll take away today, is some things that you can do now to prep you in case that happens. And then, if that employee was a problem before the injury, well, there's still going to be a problem. Usually an injury doesn't help out any situation. A lot of times it can make it worse. So just know that problem is probably not going to go away. But I would definitely say don't use now as the time to take care of it, unless you absolutely have to. And every employer needs to make that business decision. You know where that line in the sand is. But I say, if at all possible, let's try and take care of it once the claim gets resolved. So, when you do this, you have to kind of think to yourself, well, what are those benefits? What am I getting out of this? All my time, all I have to hear. So, here's just something. It's going to vary organization to organization. It's going to vary state to state on what you can say. But I mean, it does come down to cost. Workers' comp claims they're one of the more costly insurance that you have. In some states, you don't get to control what that cost is. There's very little that you get to control. One of the things you can take care of is labor. And so when you're dealing with a claim where you have little control over where it goes and what happens, and one of the things you can is that return to work process. So we say take on that. If that's all we can do, at least we know we're doing everything we can to control the cost. Another reason might be discounts. You may be eligible for discounts by not having someone go on time loss benefits or lost time benefits, depending upon where you are. Up here in Washington State, there's a 10 to 40% discount if you can go 3 years with no time loss injury. So it's a huge benefit to get to that point. And once you have it, you definitely don't want to lose that. And then, we always want to focus the focus from ability versus a disability. Someone says, woe is me, I can't do that. It's like, well, what can you do? So have them focus their attention on what they can do to definitely keep them engaged in that process. We want them to be back with their coworkers. We want them to keep in that routine and stay with their work family, as you might call it, because that in the end has shown they will get better quicker. Studies and statistics have shown that the quicker you get back to work, the cheaper the claim, the less time loss there is, and the quicker healing an injured worker will receive. And then value. Again, this is showing that you're valuing your employees, you're really invested in their well-being, and it does help provide that sense of job security for them, to give them a little less worry during maybe an unknown or a scary process. So those are just some of the few benefits we have. So let's talk a little bit more about some solutions, some action items you can take now, even before an injury happens. And again, talking about your return to work policy. This should be something that should be in your handbook. It should be part of the conversation from the date of hire. They should know exactly what's going to happen after an injury. Whether you're going to continue to pay their wages for some time, which a lot of employers do that to keep a claim from ever going to time loss. They should know, how does that work? What do? Who do they contact if they've been injured? Is it a manager, a supervisor, HR, payroll? Who is in the contact list that they should reach out to? So those should be a part of the conversation from day one. And then keeping those conversations going during your staff meetings, during your safety meetings. That's a really good time to talk about what to do after an injury, because you should be talking about keeping people safe at work and things that need to be fixed around your organization. But, making sure that this is a part of an ongoing conversation. And it does not have to be your hour-long staff meeting. We're going to talk about workers' comp today. No, it could just be a small part of a reminder of what's going on, or the type of season, excuse me, that you may be in. Also, you want to make sure that your employees are active in solutions for their own departments, because that will help you down the line on having solutions. So the next thing is after an injury. So you'll always want to make sure that you have the treating physician's approval for any light duty. And that means that it can simply be an activity prescription form, a doctor's note, or even a job description that's been signed off by the doctor. That's your first step in making sure that what you're providing is something that's physically able for the injured worker to do. You also want to make sure that during that conversation, you're talking to the employer about, yes, you have light duty, and yes, you're going to go to their doctor, and you're going to find out what they're able to do, and take into consideration any concerns or worries that they may have at that time. Get them involved in that process. For the most part, you can do that. There are a few situations to where you may want to just go to the doctor first and worry about the injured worker in that conversation later. But for the most part, in 95% of the cases, if it's going well, you want to involve that with it. And then definitely document each step in the return to work process. We always recommend that you get a written job description with physical demands, and that you have that approved by the doctor first, and then you follow up with a job offer letter in writing. That way you have a paper trail on what you've done, on everything that you've given to the doctor, all the information that they have about the job. The more information, the better description of the work that they're going to be able to do. I even had some employers that provided pictures with it if it's a job that's very hard to explain. The more information you can provide up front to the doctors so that they understand what the job is going to be, the more we have seen, the better the approval comes through by the doctor when they can match what the worker's telling them, what their pain is coming from, or what they're able to not do or do, and they're seeing you want to provide light duty, so they can better match that up. So definitely document during the process. The other thing, when looking for a light duty and you're in that creation process, you're like, well, what do I do? What can someone do? Definitely look for jobs that never get done. I always tell an employer, what's the one thing that is on the bottom of your to-do list? Look for that first. Those are usually things that get pushed to the bottom because it's like, I'll do it later. Those are sometimes some of the best light duty jobs. In an office, it's like, I want that closet organized. I want that huge stack filed away. Maybe you're in a warehouse and it's like, no one ever goes in the back corner because we don't know what's back there, or we need to log inventory, or we just need someone to, take stock of our safety policies and programs and see what needs to be done, update certifications and records, things like that. Look for jobs that never get done. And with that, on the whole organization, KonMari your space. Organize it, clean it up, get it out of there. Those are perfect tasks. Go to your supervisors and department heads. Ask them, what is light? What is the lightest thing that they do other than their own job sometimes? But go ahead and ask them to come up with some tasks. Really what you want to hone in on is any jobs that require heavy lifting, pushing and pulling, or frequent walking. Those are likely the modifications that will need to be made for somebody that has a knee injury, a back injury, or shoulder injury. And so I would hone in on that first. That's going to be your most difficult task, is looking for ways that you can take that out of the job or reduce it down. And then be flexible. Some jobs can be modified if you have two people doing it, if they're shadowed with someone else, or if the job in of itself is taken from a full day to a half a day, or even just a couple of hours. So those are some ways you can even take a regular job and maybe not have to modify it, but just make it less than a full day. Know that with light duty, sometimes you may need to change the job hours. part-time, a different schedule, allowing more breaks for someone, maybe all that they need. Those are all forms of light duty. And you may have to take tasks from like 5 different jobs in order to put them into one job for someone to do. Again, that is it's thinking outside of the box, being creative, and lean on your employees to help you with that. Ask them what's the lightest task in each of their jobs, and see if that can be something that you can use to your advantage. So once you've kind of gotten to that point where you've assessed the situation, you've assessed some jobs, or maybe you've just honed in on a few of those. So I think some of your first steps are maybe to do some research. Going back to the statistics I showed earlier, where are your injuries coming from? Do you have any trends that you see on which department has the most injuries? Is it maintenance, janitorial, landscaping? Is it your summer camps? What is it? Where are those injuries coming from? And then that's when you go to those jobs specifically. And I would start there, because it can be very overwhelming to say, I have 30 different types of jobs. How can I create 30 new light duty jobs? And that's just way too overwhelming. So you can take that down and just look at your ones that are causing people to lose time from work. And then once you've done that, that's when you create that written job description. And again, I would do it now. There's no sense of waiting till someone gets injured. Do it now, thinking about that now, where you have some time. That's when it can be more freeing to do it, rather than in the heat of the moment when someone calls you tomorrow and says, well, I can't do my job right now. What do you want me to do? And that's always difficult for anybody and then it takes your time, because now you're not being able to do your job because you're just looking for the next hour when they say, okay, I'm done with that. What else do you want me to do? So take time to do those written job descriptions in now before you even need them. There's a couple of resources that I found helpful in when you're looking at how to make a job less heavy. One of them is askjan.org, which is the Job Accommodation Network, or JAN. And I believe 501c has had a webinar with them, or is having one with them in the future. So you can look forward to that. And then I also found O*Net Online. And that also is helpful in ways to take a job and look at the different tasks of that and break it down into small bites. And then from there, think about ways you can reduce some heavy parts of that job. So both of these were very interesting in ways to pick a job that you may not do ever, or you may not even be exposed to at all because you're not in that department. You don't deal with that. Or you're getting resistance, so you don't have help from a supervisor, or no one has the time to help you out. These two websites may be helpful to even put something together, and then you can go to someone who does know and say, okay, I've drafted something, maybe take a look at it and see if this works. And then lastly, I did want to talk about the Safety Ambassador Program. This is a program designed for employers that don't have any light duty. It basically is an online light duty job. It's with a platform that is very easy for an injured worker to navigate, because they basically sign in at the start of a day and it leads them through a complete 8-hour day. It provides them with all different sorts of training videos, safety training in regards to your work and home, health and wellness, ways they can be reduce an injury in the future. And it also includes e-learning activities and quizzes. So this really becomes a light duty job. And we found it really successful because all you need is a computer and the internet. And it's a job that does not require any lifting. It's sitting all day, or in the case of a job where they need to sit or stand, possibly having a sit to stand desk can take care of that. But there's no lifting, there's no pushing, pulling, and they're basically involved with this for 8 hours a day, and there's verifications built in for the employer. There is daily time-stamped reports. There's a certificate of completion after an 8-hour day, and there's also a customized dashboard. So this is so flexible that it can be used for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, up to 8 hours for a full day. And there is right now currently 20 full days available, which is 160 hours of content. So it's free to try out. No credit card required. There's 4 hours of content available. So for any employer that says, I don't have light duty, I don't know what to do, I send them here. Go to ineedsap.com, sign up for the free trial. You're going to get 4 hours of content. You're now going to have someone busy for 4 hours. So in that time, you can start to think about what your next steps might be. You know, we have different subscription levels for this. It's easy to purchase. You can purchase by the day, or if you have an unknown length of time that someone might be in this program, you can purchase a subscription, which gives you unlimited use. And with the unlimited use, you also get access to safety training videos and safety meeting topics, so that if you don't have somebody that's injured at work, you can rely upon those safety videos for that re-education and that constant ongoing training. With this, basically the first 3 weeks of content are all original. It's not repeated at all. And then the 4th week is a recap week. So that 4th week does mix content from earlier weeks to kind of make sure that that training is cemented in. And this is for any industry, any employer, any number of employees, because it's unlimited use if you buy subscription. So this is a great solution if you absolutely do not have light duty and you want to keep your injured worker at work. You want to keep them engaged in that process. You don't want to lose track of them, and you don't want them to lose track of the end goal, which is to get them back to their regular job. And that's another cool thing about this program, is that it allows you to maybe have a light duty job, but if you only have maybe 6 hours a day or 7 hours a day, and you're just not able to fill that full day, you can use this to supplement what you already do. And it's just another tool in your arsenal as you're working through what type of light duty you have in your organization. So I always want to make sure and make sure employers know that this is available for them. So here's some final thoughts. Return to work is going to look different for every employer and every injured worker. You might see a case where you're like, this is it. It's going great. I've done it perfectly. I've gotten all my ducks in a row. And then the next claimant comes along and it looks completely different and doesn't go any way the other one did. And that's okay. As long as you're reaching towards that end goal of actually getting them back to work, getting them off any state benefits, or if you're even paying them your wages, getting some productivity out of it, that's really what matters. And helping them recover during that process, that's really what's essential. We really want these injured workers to get better, heal quickly, and come back to work. And then my next suggestion is definitely don't attempt this all at once. Start small, rely upon others, delegate out some small tasks for others to do, and then just start somewhere. If you've just had an injury, or you review some of your past years and you see some red flags come up, that's where to start. Start there. And then definitely keep track of the savings that you're getting. Shout that to the world. You want to know that if you have saved X and X dollars because you kept them from getting time loss, definitely let others know. I mean, there is a true cost savings value to this, but it will depend upon your own organization where that's going to be. And it could even be that you kept someone from even having a claim because it was a near miss, and yet together you took care of the issue that caused the near miss accident. So there's a savings of a whole claim, and it never happened. So keep track of those. Make sure everybody knows what they are so that you can be applauded for, taking care of it now. Document what works and what doesn't. Keep notes. You may find that next time it has to look very different from how you did it the first time. And, I always suggest that if you don't have light duty, if there's no way to offer it, if Safety Ambassador Program's not for you, and there's just no way you can bring someone back, always consider keeping them on salary, paying them their regular wage while they recover. This can help eliminate time loss costs, which are a huge driver of overall claim costs in most claims, and it will help keep that injured worker focused on the recovery, knowing that you're there backing them up. So up here in Washington State, it's actually mandatory for the first, 30 days that be done for 501c retro members. And we have found that it's a great tool to keep those overall claim costs down by doing that. So you may consider that may be the right move for you, depending upon where you're at. So those are my final thoughts as we look at ways that we can overcome a lot of the barriers we see with return to work and barriers you may have from an injured worker, or even within your own organization, or even within some of your coworkers. You may not have any help, and the barriers may be from everyone but you. So I'm hoping today I gave you some wisdom, some nuggets of information you can take back, some action items that you can do or that you can start today that can help you to really help keep your costs down. And that's really what we want. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me. Here's my phone number, my email. You can visit our website, and then you could definitely visit ineedsap.com if you're interested in signing up for the free trial and to get the 4 hours of content, or if you're interested in what that program offers. So thank you so much today for listening in, and if there's any questions, I will be willing to answer them. I'll stick around for a while. Or if you have something specific, feel free to email me and I can deal with those later.
Thanks, Janae. Let's see if we've got any questions here. I will fill them, so please, send them to me and I'll send them on to you, Janae, or we can answer them right now. Let me see. Someone has a question. Are you making sure to use FMLA through this process if applicable? You want to answer that? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I can. I would say that if it is, I definitely would start FMLA. Most employers, if they have it available, they do tend to start it right away. So I would do that. There may come a point in time where FMLA runs out and you're still dealing with an ongoing, claim, and then you have a decision to make. But I would start it for the protection of you, the employer, so you have that in place.
I would agree with that completely, Janae. From the HR side of things also, it can run concurrently together and probably should. Let me see if I have another question here, Janae. That's all I see, but we'll wait a few seconds here to give you time. And while we're waiting for some more questions, just to let you know, once again, these are certified, this presentation today, through HRCI or SHRM. And to get the certification for SHRM, you should get a pop-up of a few survey questions to answer, and then they'll give you the information you need. Sometimes that can be an hour after the presentation. HRCI, please email us, and we'll make sure you get that. And SHRM, if that doesn't work for you, excuse me, which is hrservices@501c.com. And here we have another question, Janae. I just missed the video. Would I be able to hear a recording of the webinar? That perhaps you can. Can you email me, Sherry? And I will get that information to you. And that's email me at hrservices@501c.com. Let me see if we have something else here. Okay, we do have another question, Janae. What is the next recommended step if somebody is out on an injury and out of FMLA leave and you cannot accommodate any restricted work?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Very tough.
Because, coming from the non-HR side, just coming from the workers' comp side of things, my first gut instinct is you need to protect your rates from going up. That claim could be very costly depending upon what type of claim it is. And so you want to do everything you can to, bring them back into the fold. And it might depend upon the type of injury. There's a big difference between someone who has a sprain to someone who, has been in the hospital and fractured their leg. We're looking at a very long-term type injury versus, a short-term injury. Here I can tell you just from Washington State, you do not, and I'm pretty sure this is for any state, you are not required to bring them back. I mean, that's first and foremost. There is no requirement. If they've run out of FMLA, they have no protection there, and you just can't accommodate, you don't have to bring them back. They will likely be eligible for benefits through the state you're in, the time loss benefits, and that's why you have insurance. That's what, workers' comp insurance is for. Just know that those are costs that are going to probably drive up your rate. And depending upon how many claims you have in the year, the cost of those claims, it could be significant or it could be minor. It just depends upon how long they're out. It's a last resort. I definitely don't want an employer to have to make that decision where they just can't bring someone back. But say, for instance, it's they're going to be in rehab for 6 or 8 weeks, and you're like, I can't do it. If at all possible, my next solution is, okay, if they have to go on time loss because you can't accommodate them, then let it become a time loss claim. But then let's focus on the end goal, which is to get them back to work at some point. And so you would want to continue to communicate with them throughout the recovery process and their doctor to know when they're able to come back to some type of work or when they're recovered to come back to their job of injury. And it may be sending the doctor the job of injury job description and saying, when do you anticipate them to be able to do this full job? And at least you would know a time frame. And then you could either backfill that position temporarily, or you could, if you had to, hire permanently for that job. And then when that injured worker is able to come back to work, you could then address their ability to work during that process. And that could either be 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months out, but then you could address it at that time. Know that most states have benefits set up to help injured workers in the event that they can't come back to their job on a temporary basis, and also in the event they can't come back to their work ever. And again, those costs all go back to you. In Washington State, it's very expensive when they can never return to any type of work. And L&I in Washington State, Department of Labor and Industries, has retraining benefits set up to help someone come back. But it's very costly. And so I always caution employers, if you do that, try not to do that until it's a last resort.
Thank you, Janae. That's good advice. This is Maureen with HR Services. We're always nervous about workers' comp. I'll just add a couple of things on the HR side of things, because we know it's protected, and we can run FMLA concurrently with it if we're an employer with 50 or more employees. But I would be careful. All states are different. I think Washington actually, and Janae's group, has a really good program. Some states, like I'm in California, we're always a little nervous about just, taking that employee off of our payroll. And if you want to talk further or you have questions, always feel free to call us at HR Services too. Janae, let me see if there's any other question here.
Yes, and I'll add, anybody that's in Washington State, definitely give me a call. Whether you're in the 501c retro program or not, give me a call. I can feel free to answer any question you have for Washington State. And if there's anything general, I can probably tell you what I would do here and provide you guidance for another state as well.
Well, thank you, Janae. They're excellent there. I can validate that, Janae and the group at ICM. So thank you. I am not seeing, but I'm still looking. See if we have any more questions. But as Janae said, if you do, feel free to call her at that number she has on the slides, which is 360-786-1378, or email Janae, JANEE at IMOLY.com. And I'm not seeing any more questions. If I missed you, I'm sorry, but I do not see any more. Point. I'm taking it we don't have any more questions right now. But we're here to help you out, as Janae says. And thank you for attending today. And thank you so much, Janae. I really appreciate you doing this for our trust members.
Oh, thank you, Maureen. I really enjoy it. It's what I'm kind of passionate about, so I love to talk about it.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we're here for you. Take care. Bye-bye.